Hey everyone, I'm Ornella Hernandez, and on this Web3 Talks, we have Alex Nascimento joining me, who is a faculty member at UCLA and also one of the founding members of the blockchain lab at the university. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks Ornella. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for joining me. I wanted to ask you, is education the most important thing that we need in the crypto industry to advance it? In my experience, I feel like we just need better business models, better business people running companies. But do you think education is the most important thing?
If you take a very academic point of view, right, education is the most important thing in general, because if you don't have education, then you might have a lot of grit and be successful, but you don't have the foundations that are necessary to build strong business models. And I think that one of the things that it's very native to our industry is that it's very fast paced and it changes drastically. So a good point to your question is, if you have the right foundations of how to build good business models regardless of the industry, then you can transport and translate that education into crypto and Web3.
Okay, makes sense. And so in the curriculum that you built at UCLA, what are the foundations of the course and what are the most important points that you teach your students?
Yeah, so we go all the way from the beginning. I teach a couple of courses. I teach business blockchain applications, which is how to use the technology for a variety of industries like legal, like supply chain, like entertainment and so forth, which it's more like a tech application class. And then obviously a course for finance, because finance is what drives the industry here. But we go through like the very beginning of like, what is a blockchain? What is the difference between a centralized database and a decentralized database? Our focus in the courses that I teach is to bring executives, students, and entrepreneurs to a level of understanding of the technology and how Web3 is going to really revolutionize the way we live as a society.
So people already in the corporate world who want a better foundation of Web3 essentials, correct?
Exactly. Okay. So lawyers, entrepreneurs, executives of TV networks and studios all can take the course. And then we have at UCLA, a little bit of a plug, we have one that it's open to the general audience worldwide.
That's an online course?
Yeah, it's an online course.
Oh, okay.
You can just Google UCLA blockchain, it's the first thing that comes up Google.
All right. And how do you differentiate between all the different terminology when it comes to just like the general ones, blockchain, Web3, crypto? I feel like they all obviously have their nuances, but nowadays Web3 is the big blanket term. How did we get from blockchain to Web3? And now I'm hearing on-chain is the new term. So how do you maybe break that down for students who want to speak the lingo?
Yeah, so that's a very good question, right? So taxonomy is really an issue that we as an industry are struggling with. And a lot of people come to us and they're like, well, taxonomy, I can say this or I can say that, right? The challenge here is really like, how do you build regulation if you don't have taxonomy? Because if you're going to build laws and regulation, you need to address things in the correct way. To that point, we utilize the ones that are coming out of regulation, both in the US and around the world, to address the different points in the technology. But we start from the foundations. We're big believers that if you don't understand the foundation, you're not going to be able to understand how the industry evolved in the last 5 years and how it will continue to evolve. To your point, when we started, we talked about Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Right, that was it.
And now it's kind of like metaverse, dApps, AI, VR, machine learning, and all these terms that the general executive doesn't have the time to update themselves because they're working 8, 10, 12 hours plus having a family.
No, for sure, definitely. It can be confusing for even people in the industry, like, okay, what's trending right now? It's the new terms, new jargon. Okay, and then what have you found maybe most challenging for the students to hold a grasp on when it comes to blockchain?
Yeah, I think it goes back to, if you try to understand what's going on from a point of view of today, without understanding like what are the foundations, like what is a decentralized ledger, right? Sometimes we do a lot of corporate education with through UCLA, through with law firms or with big banks. Mostly now, most bank executives understand crypto and blockchain, but back in 2017 and 18, that was not really the case. So the fact that they would need to understand the foundations would give them that aha moment, right? And you would see in the faces of these like TradFi guys that are in their late 50s, early 60s, they're like, now I get it. And also, the light bulb moment, right? Oh, so can I adapt my business model, whatever it was, or whatever product, to this technology? And you would see the engines in that person as head going on and seeing all the possibilities.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the biggest difficulty, is people trying to understand what's going on today without understanding the history and where it came from.
Yeah, and then learning how to apply that to their
business model.
Okay, that makes sense. And then you mentioned regulation, and in the US specifically, since you're in the US, it's been a very hectic regulatory landscape recently, given the SEC's crackdown on big companies like Coinbase. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that, and where you think that's heading, and maybe what the damages that have been caused are.
Yeah, the damages are massive, right? And this comes from one single point of view, and it's a fact. Most of, and I'm not going to say most, I'm going to give you a data point. More than 40% of bonds and equities around the world, or global trade, is done in the US. And the SEC is the overarching regulator of securities, right? So if you're a traditional regulated financial institution anywhere around the world, you want to be able to access that 40% of the global market, right?
Yeah.
Naturally. So you would look at the SEC and what the regulator of that 40% market share is saying. So a lot of what we're seeing in the US is this brain drain of entrepreneurs that are not being able to implement their business models because we don't have a very clear regulatory environment in crypto in the US. We're seeing companies that are publicly traded, like you mentioned, Coinbase, being scrutinized by not really having guidance from the regulator. I will not even go to the extent to say that there's not a regulatory clear path in the US. It's just a path that is for traditional finance that has not been adapted to new business models.
Do you think the government wants to adapt it to new business models?
I think the government will have to adapt to new business models, right? A revolution, and it's what's happening online, is not something you can stop.
Yeah.
It's just something that happens, and you have to adapt or you're disrupted.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. All right. And then now let's get into just personally maybe how you got into the space, and maybe what prompted you to maybe start investing and then eventually become a professor.
Yeah, so I was a faculty before being in crypto. My white hair tells probably how old I am. But I used to teach digital strategies and entrepreneurship. And then in 2017, as we all know, Bitcoin went from 1,000 to 20,000. UCLA.
Were you a big investor in Bitcoin?
I wasn't. I candidly say this. What drove me to see the potential and the future of the technology were smart contracts.
On Ethereum.
On Ethereum, right? We had that discussion. What was my first investment in this space was in Ethereum.
Yeah, for both of us, yeah.
Yeah, because you could see that now it had enterprise-grade solution. Right, you could see companies like Walmart or other logistic companies or even banks looking at smart contracts to solve a lot of their problems. So like I was saying, Bitcoin went from 1,000 to 20,000, and then UCLA being a university that was a beacon of the internet, of launching the internet originally. A lot of people don't know this, but actually the university was one of the major influencers of the very, very early days of the internet, wanted to do a lab. And I took the chance and the opportunity to develop the curriculum, and that was 17, and now we're in 2023.
Okay, and then maybe you could walk us through that evolution of when it comes to teaching a course when things are changing so much all the time, and I mean there's news every day. How do you stay up to date and keep your course updated for your students?
Yeah, I try to do my best at keeping up at reading, but one thing I tell my students on the first day of class, and I tell everyone that is entering the space, I just say relax. You're not going to be able to read as fast as the industry evolves, right? What I highly recommend is, like, if you like a certain topic, if you like art, if you like entertainment, if you are a student of the law school, focus on your area, deep dive on your area, become an expert in your segment, and the technology has a lot of applications for that segment. Obviously, as the industry evolves, you catch up on things that are evolving, and like the old saying says, the best way of learning is teaching. So
true. When you can explain something to others, it means that you understand it.
Yeah, or at least you're in the process of understanding.
Definitely, definitely. And so do you plan to expand this curriculum to other countries and other universities?
Yeah, so one of the efforts we're doing here in Dubai is to bring corporate education here to Dubai. The thesis is that Dubai is going to become the major hub of crypto and Web3 in the next coming years because of the regulatory friendliness here, the economical feasibility, the rule of law that is around the country. So we foresee that a lot of entrepreneurs, investors, and new ideas are going to come to Dubai. So we think that empowering the local community here into understanding the technology and also the regulatory environment is something that will bring a lot of value to the region. Yeah,
definitely. And I know that you wear another hat. Mm-hmm. You are the managing director of a VC firm, right? Mm-hmm. 7cc Blockchain Investments. So how do you balance that between your professor role, and what sectors are you looking in to invest at the moment?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. It's a lot of sleepless nights and long emails, but the idea that we're always looking to is, like, what is going to get A, institutional adoption, and B, what's disruptive, right? Our central thesis is, if there is no institutional adoption, you won't really have a market. And case in point, we're seeing this here in Dubai with the government supporting the Web3 economy. So, and technically we're not seeing so much in the US. So we're seeing a lot of new innovation coming to Dubai that could be built in other places. So,
well, in the US, I think we do see TradFi companies trying to get in, right? Like with all the applications for Bitcoin ETFs. Mm-hmm. So even though there's pushback, I think it's a sign that those companies really do believe in blockchain. Would you agree?
I think that the train has left the station, right? It isn't a case anymore of, do you believe in Bitcoin, or do you believe that Web3 will happen? I think that throughout the years of doing corporate education, you see high-level executives, one having that aha moment of understanding how the technology is going to disrupt their business, and two, looking at what's happening and just seeing the reality, right? So either you move or you become Kodak.
Right.
The old Kodak example is one that I truly like to use. You think you're not going to get disrupted, that a new technology is not going to come and completely change your business model. So I think that obviously these companies are well versed and they have some of the brightest people that went to some of the best universities around the world. So they understand that the disruption is here and they have to adapt.
They don't want to get left behind.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And then when it comes to investments then, what do you think is going to run or drive the next bull market? Could it be tokenization? Could it be metaverse? What do you think is the biggest sector that will drive that pump up again?
I think that the next one is probably the near short one is AI, right? We're seeing a massive disruption around all industries, and especially around finance. I was just at a conference in Beijing, and we were talking about how they're in Asia are building banking bots that will interact directly with you as a customer and develop your own portfolio and then manage your own portfolio. But then the discussions are, how does one bot then trades against another bot?
Wait, these are physical bots?
Well, no, algorithm bots.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. But maybe soon they will have like a Boston AI robot sitting at the desk.
So you don't think we need to fear AI then? You think it's a natural evolution for us?
I think that a lot of people are going to get their jobs disrupted, and that's for sure. You know, I don't tend to sugarcoat things. I don't believe that that's the right position as an educator. You want to give people like the facts, but I believe like anything else, if you're trained and if you understand, you can leverage that skill. You were just telling me that you went from journalism to taking a coding course, right? That's usually not the transition of someone who studied journalism, but props for you to do that because you're understanding a new technology and you're leveraging that skill. So similarly to AI, I think that we all should welcome the technology and understand it and see how we can leverage it in our own business model and careers.
Definitely. So nothing to fear then. And just some final thoughts from you. I wanted to hear maybe if you have any advice, people who want to get into the industry, whether it's just as an investor or just want to learn more, what resources would you recommend? And what's the best way to get educated?
Yeah, I would say, back to the beginnings, back to basics. Try to understand where it started, how it evolved, so that you will be able to follow its evolution, right? And it will do wonders for you as a newcomer to the industry because you will understand why NFTs became a thing, right? Why are we now talking about AI bots for liquidity market making? So you will understand all these evolutions. And then obviously go to good sources like your TV show that brings good guests and shares good content, so that you can get from like the people that are building it some of the insights, because this is a very fast-paced industry and it changes. And like I said, relax. You're not going to be able to read as much as it evolves.
Thank you, Alex, so much for your time. And could you tell our viewers maybe where they can follow you or read up more about you?
Sure. So thank you for inviting me. And for those that are looking to continue the conversation, please find me on LinkedIn. It's Alex Nascimento. And if you put Alex Nascimento UCLA or Alex Nascimento blockchain, I'm in the black and white picture there. It'll be a pleasure to continue the conversation.
Thanks for tuning in to Web3 Talks. And please remember to like and leave your comments below. Until next time, I'm Ornella Hernandez.